Welcome back to the Buttercup Bakery Food Safety Induction and Refresher Training. This is part 4, where we will be covering food contamination. In this topic, you will learn about one of the most important aspects of food safety, food contamination. If you don't understand how food contamination occurs or how to avoid it, you will not be able to work safely with food. When you complete this topic, you will be able to describe the 3 ways food can be contaminated, the symptoms of food poisoning, the role of bacterial contamination in food poisoning, food spoilage, the temperature danger zone, different kinds of high-risk and low-risk foods, and the do's and don'ts of cross-contamination. Food contamination. Food contamination occurs when something is found in food that shouldn't be there. Contaminated food can be unsafe for consumption. Causes of food contamination. There are 3 ways that food can be contaminated: biological hazards or microorganisms, including bacteria, fungi, yeasts, mold, and viruses; chemical hazards, including cleaning chemicals or foods with naturally occurring toxins such as green potatoes; and physical hazards, including dangerous physical objects such as plastic, glass, metal, elastic bands, wood chips, or bandages. Beware. Selling contaminated food could lead to customer illness or injury, legal action taken by the municipality and the customer, bad publicity, including the closure of the premises or the loss of your job. You must follow the correct food handling techniques to ensure that food is not contaminated. Where do bacteria come from? Food poisoning is most often caused by bacteria that have been able to multiply or form a toxin in the food. Bacteria and other microorganisms can be found in soil, on animals, on people, and on the things that people touch and use. One of the greatest threats to food safety is the fact that bacteria can multiply from just a few cells to millions in a very short period of time. Some factors that affect the growth of bacteria include the temperature of the food, the moisture content of the food, the time they have to grow in food, particularly food kept in the danger zone of 5 to 60 degrees Celsius, and exposure to air. Bacteria will not grow quickly if these factors are controlled. Food poisoning. Anyone that eats contaminated food can get food poisoning. However, vulnerable people are at higher risk of developing severe symptoms from unsafe food. Food poisoning symptoms. Food poisoning is quite common and can be very serious. It can cause severe illness and sometimes even death. The symptoms of food poisoning can be mild to severe and can include diarrhea, stomach cramps, nausea, vomiting, fever, headaches, and jaundice. Food poisoning symptoms can appear within an hour or 2, but may take up to 36 hours to appear. Be aware that these symptoms can also be caused by food intolerances or other illnesses. It is best to seek medical advice if you have any of these symptoms. Food poisoning bacteria. Food poisoning bacteria don't affect the smell, taste, or appearance of food. Food poisoning is caused by contaminated food that has been poorly handled, stored, or not cooked properly. You cannot tell just by looking at a food whether it has been affected by food poisoning bacteria. You could easily transport, prepare, or sell food without knowing that it could cause food poisoning. It is important to take steps to prevent food from being contaminated in the first place. Food spoilage. There is a difference between food that is spoiled and food that can cause food poisoning. Food spoilage is obvious, for example, sour milk, moldy bread, or slimy fruit and vegetables. As spoiled food is unfit to eat, it should be thrown out. Food spoilage can be prevented by rotating food using the first in, first out rule to ensure that the first item purchased is the first consumed. Storing food correctly, for example, storing eggs and butter in the cold room. And refrigerating, freezing, canning, or vacuum packing food. What is the risk? A major cause of food contamination is bacteria, which can multiply quite quickly given the right conditions. Certain types of food allow quick growth of bacteria because they are generally moist and high in nutrients. These are called high-risk foods. Foods that are less able to support bacterial growth are called low-risk foods. Low-risk foods do not need to go in the fridge and are typically dry foods. High-risk foods. High-risk foods in which bacteria grow quickly include meat, poultry or chicken, seafood, cooked rice, cooked pasta, sliced delicatessen meats, for example, polony and ham, prepared salads such as coleslaw, pasta salads and rice salads, prepared fruit salads, foods containing eggs that are either cooked or raw, and ready-to-eat foods containing any of the above, for example, sandwiches and sushi. Eggs and risk. Eggs, especially raw or lightly cooked eggs, have been associated with a large number of food poisoning outbreaks, as bacteria can be found on the shell or inside an egg, especially if it's cracked or dirty. Foods that contain raw or just cooked eggs are at higher risk of contamination from food poisoning. To handle eggs safely, wash your hands after handling eggs. Do not use dirty or cracked eggs. These eggs should be thrown away. Do not wash eggs as it makes it easier for bacteria to penetrate the shell. Thoroughly clean and sanitize blenders, mixers, and other equipment. Low-risk foods. Low-risk foods in which bacteria do not grow quickly include cereal, flour, confectionery, sugar, dry biscuits, spices, and uncooked grains. Low-risk foods do not support the growth of bacteria because they are dry and have often been processed in a way like being dried, salted, or acidified, which lowers or eliminates microorganisms in the food. They may also have had chemicals added to them or being packaged to minimize microorganisms. The raw materials that Buttercup Bakery uses to produce its final products are mostly low-risk foods, for example, flour, sugar, water, and yeast. The only high-risk product that is used in production are shelled eggs. Temperature danger zone. An important part of food safety is food temperature and storage. Correct temperatures. Bacteria can grow on food that isn't kept at the correct temperature. Keep hot food hot at 60 degrees or hotter. Keep cold food cold at or below 5 degrees Celsius. Keep frozen food frozen at or below minus 18 degrees Celsius. Temperature danger zone. The ideal temperatures for bacteria to multiply is between 5 and 60 degrees Celsius. This is called the temperature danger zone. Food should be kept between these temperatures for as little time as possible. Bacteria multiply quickly, especially in high-risk food. Cross-contamination. Cross-contamination occurs when harmful bacteria or allergens spread to food from other food, surfaces, hands, or equipment. It can occur if equipment used for raw food preparation is then used for cooked or ready-to-eat food, or between foods that cause allergic reactions and other foods. Food poisoning can occur when bacteria in raw food, such as onions, comes in contact with final baked product or ready-to-eat food, and the bacteria then have the chance to grow. It is your responsibility as a food handler to prevent cross-contamination. Do keep food covered and protected. Clean and sanitize all equipment and food contact surfaces. Store food at the right temperature. Wear clean clothing. Wash hands before handling food. Wash your hands after handling eggs, and keep raw materials separate from work in progress materials in the cold room. Don't handle raw materials and then baked product without washing your hands. Don't store product uncovered in the cold room. And don't have uncovered product on display where it may be handled, touched, coughed, or sneezed on. That completes part 4, food contamination. Please open the next presentation, which is part 5, where we will be discussing delivery and storage.